Dave Pomeroy and the WorkingPro 12 by SWR.
Howdy folks, as you just found out, I'm Dave Pomeroy and I'm here at the Fender Nashville headquarters. I want to talk to you a little bit about this excellent amplifier right here, the SWR WorkingPro 12. I've had mine for a couple of years now and it's just been a fabulous piece of gear, very reliable, very versatile, and very portable. As its name implies, it's got a single 12-inch speaker. And I've really found that 12s really capture a nice place in between the tightness of a 10-inch and the boom of a 15. And if you're dealing with one speaker, to me the 12 is a really nice way to go. It's got a little horn in it as well. I tend to keep the horn off myself, but if you want to get that more sizzly, bright sound, there's a little three-way switch here on the side where you can turn that on and get a little more of that high-endy sound, but for the most part I tend to leave it off, but it's a nice option to have. But the problem with an amp like this, you're standing in front of it, it shoots out between your legs, and the people in the 10th row are hearing a lot more of it than you are. So the WorkingPro 12 was designed to fix that problem by this fabulous feature, being able to lean it back, and you'll notice when you hear it, it's a little bit thinner. So what you do now is you press this little button here called Wedge EQ, and it gives you back what you lose by having less of the amp coupling to the surface of the stage, especially with a hollow stage. You can hear that boom come back. You get that low end back that you would lose if you put it back. So I think that's a really great feature. If you're in a situation where things are ultra boomy, being able to turn that off, you can thin out your sound without affecting what's going to the direct to the house. And that's the next thing I'll talk about. There's a XLR output on the back with a pad for the direct input, and a lot of amplifiers have direct outs that don't really sound that good. I've found that this has been very clean, very accurate in a lot of different situations. I've really never run into those typical grounding kind of problems. So it's one less thing you got to bring as far as having a direct box with you, or the cheap little direct box that the club might have. So it's a great way to send your signal to the house and essentially use this as a monitor. And I've just found that having it tilted back like this, it's pointed up at you, it keeps you from playing louder than you should to blend with the band. And in the end, especially in a small gig, it's all about blending and letting the house band do his job with the sound. So one of the other cool features that we'll get to here on this little side panel, in addition to the three-way horn switch, you've also got an input for a monitor send, whether it's a click track, whether it's a something on the other side of the stage. You can actually send a mix into your own amp. It's a nice feature to have. If you were playing with tracks, for example, if you're doing some kind of solo thing, you could have that in, and then all your sound is still coming from one place. The bass intensifier is something that I really haven't run across in any other amplifier, and again, it gives you the ability to kind of create a much larger sound than you would ever expect to hear out of an amp of this size. I'll give you a little example. I've still got the Wedge EQ button plugged in, and so playing in a normal style. So you hear that, and then I'm going to turn this on, and you can right away hear the boom factor. It just takes you to another place. Sometimes you want that. Sometimes people are going to look at you like, dude, you got to turn down. But when you have an amp this small that sounds that big, being told to turn down is a good indicator that you're on the right track. Now, just going through the regular settings here, you've got your gain, which is essentially input gain control. Then you've got the SWR Aural Enhancer, which has been on everything from the Redhead on down. And it's a nice way to kind of open up the sound. This is with it completely off. Pretty kind of flat, true sound. Well, I tend to use it just a little bit to where it just opens up the high and the low end a little bit. But you can crank it up a little more and you get more of that kind of scooped, mid-rangey kind of tone. Get pretty close to the max here. there a little more, and the top end is a little more open. Combined with the horn, you can really get a very bright top end kind of sound if that's what you're going for. A lot of the situations I run into, things are a little more in the rootsy area, and so I tend to use it at about 2 or 3 out of 10, and it just kind of opens it up a little bit to me in a real natural way. Then you've got 3-band EQ, bass, mid, treble, fixed frequencies, but they're all, I think they're set at really good points. At the moment, I've pretty much got it, that's set flat. But then if you want to crank up the bass, you've got quite a bit of room here. And what's nice about this is you can combine the bass control with the bass intensifier and the wedge EQ to kind of dial it in. The mid-range control is a really good frequency. It gives you a lot of bark in the middle. I would never crank it up this much, but this really gives you a chance to hear what it does. And so just bumping that up a little bit with a little bit of bottom, you really get a nice even tone that maybe speaks a little bit more than if you have it flat. The treble control is also at a really good sizzly frequency that doesn't have too much kind of clack in it. It's really got a nice smooth topness to it, and of course if you want a little more, you can turn the horn on and you get even a little bit more of that, and put it up in this position. Brightness kind of kick in. So really, depending on what kind of sound you're going for, you've really got a lot of options with just a simple 3-band EQ. You've got an effects blend, whereas if you're running some effects into the loop in the back, you can have it completely dry or wet or anything in between. And as most bass players know, when you hook up effects, you tend to cut your frequency response this way. So by using an effects loop, you can still maintain that bottom and top, but also have your effects in a much more subtle and, for the most part, more usable kind of way. You've got a master volume and a limiter, which kicks in really when you get too loud. It's set really in a nice place to where the amp will protect itself from, breaking up, and you can feel it kick in, but it's not like such a squashed kind of sound that you feel constricted. It still kind of breathes. So I typically can hear the limiter kicking in without looking, but you do have a little light that'll let you know when you really turn things up. Even at that kind of volume, it barely kicks in. And of course, your input gain is going to do a lot to determine how much level you can get out of this amp. But I've been really amazed at the level of good tone that I can get out of an amp this small. I'm going to hit the good old mute switch here and switch basses just to show you a little something different with the input stage. This active circuit is sending more to the amp, so what I would typically do in this situation, pull the gain back just a little bit, turn the master up. You can tell I still got that horn on. There we go. That way you're not breaking up on the front end of the amp, but you're still maxing out the level you can get. And as you can probably hear, even on this camcorder mic, this amp really throws a lot of sound. The fact that it's pointed upwards when you're on stage, to me, really keeps the bass player from being too loud. And one of the things that I've found over the years is it's a great feeling of power to be too loud on stage, but what that means is the sound man's not going to turn you up, which means that out in the house, you're not going to be getting that kind of tone that you really like to get. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. I want to show you one last thing. This is my favorite feature of the amp, and hopefully we can fit this into the screen. We're going to turn it off, and I'm going to unplug the power cord, and I'm going to pick it up and walk away. See you guys later. Take care.
Thank you, Dave.
Over and out.